Hey everybody, welcome back to John's Firearms 705. Thought I'd do a complete teardown of the Tokarev, including the hammer group and the magazine release and whatnot. So let's get right to it. First thing we're going to want to do is check safe the gun. Going to pull the slide back, lock it open with our slide lock. Take a look inside. Magazine well is empty. Chamber is empty. Feed path. This firearm is unloaded and safe to work on. First thing we're going to want to do is, if you take a look down inside the grip, I'll show you on this angle, it's probably a little bit better. You can see this little latch down here. We're going to move that from the front to the rear of the grip. That will allow your one panel to come out. Then inside, we're just going to move this one up, and that'll allow the other panel to come out. Just like that. Put those aside. We're going to depress inside here. Well, it's our trigger return spring. Then our trigger can come out. Our return spring can just tip it upside down. Trigger return spring will come right out. At this point in time, we can release our slide stop. On the other side, we're going to pull back the slide stop retaining clip, move it out of the way, okay, just like that, and hold it upside down. Just pull your slide back a little bit and the slide stop should drop out, just like that. Slide stop. Now we're going to pull our whole slide forward and cradle it underneath to grab and capture your recoil spring. Okay, I'm going to turn this upside down. Take out the recoil spring and the guide, pull it out, just set that aside. You can pop this out if you wish. You can pop out the end piece too if you wish. We're going to come down to our barrel bushing, turn it 180 degrees, pull it straight off. With our barrel, I'm going to put this one down, lift the barrel up a little bit, slide it forward, and it comes right out. Now with our slide here, we have our extractor, and there's a pin. You're going to want to punch it out from the bottom. I just use this little block I have. And I use a 1/16" punch. We just go ahead and knock that out. It's just a short little pin. Now once that out, and I pull out my punch, that will allow, there we go, the extractor to come out. Now inside here, behind the extractor, is a really small spring. So just give it a little tap and knock that out. Show you what it looks like here. It's like super, super little tiny. So pay attention to where that is. And you're probably going to want some needle nose tweezers to reinsert it afterwards. Okay, now that just leaves inside our firing pin and the firing pin spring. Now it has a pin that goes through it. Now depending on how yours is put together, mine likes to come out from the left side. I punch it out to the right. Now you can usually tell because there should be a split in the one side and the other side is solid. Punch it out from the split end. So again, I'm just going to go onto my block. And for this, I'm going to be using a 1/4" punch. Okay, you can see our little split pin here. Set that aside. Now when we pull out our punch, our firing pin's going to come out a little bit. So just put your finger behind there. Tip it down. There's your firing pin and your firing pin spring. Set that aside. Now that is, with the exception of your rear sight, that is your slide totally disassembled. Now we come over of the frame. If you want, you can pull off your slide stop retaining clip. Set that aside. Your trigger group, or your hammer block, whatever you want to call it, just pulls out in one piece. Now, I'll just hit my sear spring here and allow my hammer to come up for the next part. Okay. Now, if you look in here, there's 3 pins. The smallest one down here, we're going to just push that out with our 16th inch punch. See, and again, it's just a tiny little pin. Now once that's out, you can just grab your sear, your disconnector, your sear spring, and just grab all those and just pull them straight out. There's your sear and your sear spring. There's your disconnector. Now we want to punch out this center one here. This is what holds in the hammer and the hammer spring. Now you're going to want to kind of cradle it this way and hold it, because when you push this pin out, the spring in here is pretty heavy duty. It's going to want to push this out. Grab our, what is this, the 1/8 punch. Just push this pin out from either side, doesn't matter. See, now I got the punch through there, so it still has it captured. There's the pin for it. It's kind of short, but it is pretty thick. Now I'm just going to cradle this whole thing, you know, so I'm holding the hammer in there, pull out my punch, and that will separate your hammer and your spring. Now, see what I mean? It's a pretty heavy duty spring. Now I've devised a pretty neat hack on how to reinstall this into the hammer block. I'll show you that in a little bit. Okay, now all that really leaves on our frame is our magazine release. See, again, it has a split pin there. We're going to punch it from this side through using our 1/8 punch. Where's my block? So I'm just going to set on the block and punch that through. So there's the pin for it. It's got a little spring on there. And if you want to get that spring off, you might be able to just pull it. Okay, it just pulled off. If yours is a little bit tighter, just use some needle nose pliers to compress this, and then your spring will come off. And then the other side of your magazine catch or magazine release is the catch part. It's just this little piece here. Okay, so I'll set that aside. And then of course you just have your basic frame. Okay, so that is pretty much all the parts off of the Tokarev Type 54 or Soviet Tokarev. Basically all the Tokarevs are the same. I'll give you a little aerial view of what it looks like here with all the pieces. It's pretty much all the parts right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and reassemble it. Now, I've done this quite a few times, and I used to get a little bit hung up on the hammer block. It kind of intimidated me, but I'll show you how I put it back together, and I just find it's a super easy way. We're just going to need a pair of vice grips, and which one is this again? Our 1/8 punch. So first off though, let's start with the frame. On the right hand side, you see the little notch there? We're going to put the magazine catch. If you see how it is, it has this little raised part. That's going to be on the outside. Just going to set it in just like that. Okay. Keeping your finger on that side. You're going to grab the little part that you depress to release the magazine. Make sure our spring's back on there. Okay. Just like that. Come in on the other side and push it in. Okay, so mine's giving me a bit of a hard time, so what I like to do is I'll just set it onto my block assembly here. And then just give it a little hammer down. Just like that. Okay, so you can see it's in there. It's working just fine. Okay, and then what I like to do at this point with this one, then I grab the trigger return spring, and if you notice, the one side has this little hook on it. That's going to go inside the frame here. It's going to hook in behind that little pin. Okay, just like that. And you're going to grab your trigger with the flat side. It's going to go in like this. So we're going to push it in through the hole in the frame where the grips go, like this. Bring it up a little bit. When we get to this point, pull down here and push up on the back, just like that. Trigger's in place. So at this point, we might as well go ahead and put our grips back on. We'll grab the one with just the short little nub there, and it goes on the right-hand side. And then just move these guys to lock it in place, just like that. Then we'll grab the one with the lanyard loop cutout, goes on the left side of the firearm. And again, once we get it in there, we're just going to slide this tab back to the other side, and that'll lock these things and lock it in place onto our frame. Okay. Now at this point, you might as well go ahead and put your slide stop retaining clip back on the first little nub there. Okay. So that pretty much does our lower for now. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll put our hammer block together. Got the frame here, got our hammer. It's going to slide in here, and that groove is going to end up riding on that pin. And then the locking pin is going to go in there. But we have to compress the big spring in here first. Okay, now this is the part that I always found intimidating, but I figured out a way that seems to work best. Oh, incidentally, you'll notice on the left side of the block, the hole is tapered. The right side is just a straight hole. Keep in mind that, because when we put it together, we're going to want the pin to come in from the left side. Because of that taper in there, it's a little bit easier to receive the pin. So I got the spring in here, I got my frame, I'm going to try and compress it down on here. I got my 1/8 punch in my vice grips. And once I get this compressed, I'm going to slide it down through where the pin goes. Let's just get this compressed up in here. Okay. See, just like that. We could take it out of the vice grips. Now again, remember, the left side of the hammer there was tapered, so that's why we came in from the other side. Now we're just going to back this out a little bit, enough to get the pin started. Now it will drop a little bit, but you can move your punch around to line it back up, okay? So come out a little bit, not a whole lot, just enough to be able to get our pin started. Grab our pin. Just like that. See what I did there? Got it mostly started. Now you can push it in most of the way, and it might not go all the rest of the way because it's not quite lined up there. So at that point, all you got to do is simply move your hammer over to the side that the pin needs to finish coming out of, and that should line it up. There we go. So now we got the pin in there, and that really is the hardest part, compressing the spring and getting this in here. So now I'm going to put my punch again into the vice grips to hold it. I'm going to pull the hammer down and then put the punch through here, and I'll show you why. It just makes it a whole lot easier to install the sear spring and the sear. Okay. So you see what I did there? It's just like it's cocked as if the stuff was in here, but this is just holding it down. Okay. I'm going to turn it upside down like this. Grab my disconnector. Put our disconnector in. I don't know if I can show you here. I'll try and show you. Disconnector just goes into that hole there. See? Just like that. Okay? Then we take our sear and sear spring combination. Now inside here, get the light on this. You'll see there's that little slot, little groove down on the bottom. That's where the tip of your sear spring needs to go into, okay? Make sure it's in there. It's very important, or you could have an issue with your firearm doubling. If you don't know what that is, thank you. If you do know what that is, it's not a fun thing. So we're just gonna push it in there, and then kind of push it down and rock it back. And now it's in place, okay? Simple as that. As long as this is locked in the cocked position, you can get that in there. Then simply grab your pin, pop it in. Now it'll go in through your disconnector easily, but it's generally not lined up with your sear spring and your sear. So just while you're pushing pressure on the pin, just kind of move your sear spring up a little bit. And there we go, all in place. So now we can pull out our punch. Of course, you'll notice it is still in the cock position. Just simply push back on this if you wish, and your sear and your spring. That'll decock it. Okay, so now we got our hammer group or hammer neck mechanism, whatever you want to call it. It's all back together. It's all good to go. You can double check it, see if you got your half cock safety. Yep, full cock position, good to go. So what I like to do actually is I like to leave it in the full cocked position just for reassembly purposes. So and at this point, we might also just go ahead and put it back in the frame. It only goes in one spot. These little tabs will line up with the cutout in your frame. We can set this aside and we'll rebuild the slide. Okay, so for the slide, we might as well go ahead and put in a firing pin and the spring. So just grab your firing pin, put your spring on there, and you'll notice there is a little cutout, and that is where the firing pin retaining pin is going to go through and lock it in place like that, okay? So you want that cutout to be towards the top of your slide. See, and you're going to want to keep it, see if I can show you here, keep it up at all times when you're pushing it in, just to keep it oriented. And again, what I like to do at this point is I take the back end of my punch, it seems to fit in here perfectly, and I'll push the pin in as far as it goes and just hold it in place. Again, making sure that that little cutout is completely towards the top. Okay. Now with that in place like that, I'm going to grab the pin and insert it on the right hand side of the slide. Again with the split part in first. Okay, sometimes it's a little finicky, so maybe I'll take the pin and the spring out, the firing pin rather, and I'm going to just start this into the hole first. Again, with the side that is split, put that in first from the right hand side of the slide. There we go. Just enough to get it started. Okay, there we go. Now I'll reinstall the firing pin and the spring again with this slot facing upwards. Got this out a little bit too far. Just punch it off, back out a little bit with my punch. You'll know if you have it in too far because obviously your spring and your firing pin will not go in properly. Okay, there we go, back in there. Push it in. Push in your firing pin. Now, I went in enough that it's actually retaining it. So at this point in time, you can just go ahead and bring it on the rest of the way home. And I like to use the punch just to make sure it's set all the way. And come back, check the other side. You'll see that it's there. You can test the function of it, just make sure. Come in here and push the back of your firing pin. Make sure it's moving nice and free. I don't know if you can see it, but you can actually see it come out here. So that's all good. So now we're going to want to put the extractor in here. I found another way for this, again, a little hack I use that makes it a lot easier. Now that little spring, incidentally, I'll show you. There's that little wee hole on the end there. That's where we're going to put the little spring in first. Again, I'm using the needle nose Q-tips, needle nose tweezers, sorry about that. See, just grab it like that and we'll put it in that little hole. Push it in. Okay, it's down in that hole. Then we're going to grab our extractor. You see there's a little part that's below here. So that needs to be inside our slide. Okay, so keeping it on such an angle that that spring is not going to fall out. Kind of drop it in the place here. There, okay. Now it's not back all the way. We need to somehow compress it back and have it flush with the slide to be able to get the pin in for it. So what I found is mine came with this cleaning rod, and I just bent the handle a little bit to such a way that I can use it, and it kind of holds it right in place for me right here, okay? I'm going to grab the retaining pin for that. I'm going to put that back in the hole. Now you'll notice one end might not want to go in too good. That's usually the end that needs to stay up. So there, I'm just going to make sure this extractor is flush with the side and it's back all the way. And you should be able to just hammer that pin home. There we go. Take out this. You can check the function, make sure it moves back and everything is good. It's locked in, and I'm going to use my 1/16 punch to just set that pin down a little bit further. Okay, and you'll just want to come underneath and just make sure that it's not protruding out the hole there, or else it's going to get in the way of the function of your slide. So that's pretty much that rebuilt. We'll go ahead and grab our barrel, put it on the end, grab your barrel bushing. Again, it's 180 from where it needs to be. Bring it back up to lock it in place. I'm going to grab our recoil spring and our stopper. Pop that in there. You'll see it only goes in one way. The one whole side is bigger, and that's what's going to lock into our barrel bushing right here. Then we can grab our spring guide, put that on the other side. Now, depending on how new or how used your Tokarev is, this could be really tight or real loose, and this little knob may come off and on easy, or it might be really hard to be in there. Either way, it doesn't really matter. So now, go ahead and grab our recoil spring, stick it up in there. You'll see how it locks into the bushing. Okay, now the way I do it is I make sure that little barrel link is up. Kind of hold it like this position to keep it up. Make sure that this round spot here is facing down, because that's going to rest down on the barrel here, and the shoulders on it are going to be on either side of that barrel bushing, okay? So we can press it down, bring it in just like that, and then just give it a little side to side like that to make sure that it's centered in there. And that is now all together. Keeping in mind, I'm holding the recoil spring in at all times because it wants to jump out. So now we can just grab our lower with everything installed. Put it on. Keeping in mind, I'm still holding that recoil spring until it's on most of the way. Okay, now that's pretty much it. We're almost done. Just going to grab our slide stop, put it in the hole it belongs to. Okay, just like that. And with your thumb on this, applying a little bit of pressure. And there we go. Keeping in mind that it's flush at the back here at the moment. Put that in there and just push your slide back a little bit while pushing down on your slide stop. And it'll go right into place. And all you gotta do is simply come around to the other side, close up that little C-clip there, just like that. There we go, guys. Just that simple. Total disassembly and reassembly of the Tokarev. Now, it took me a little bit of time. I had a couple little hiccups along the way, but you know what? It's really quite simple once you do it a few times. The hammer block was a little intimidating for me at first. I also wasn't a big fan of taking out the extractor. But if you do it the way I showed you, it's actually quite easy. One thing I will suggest, don't dry fire these. You're not going to hurt your firing pin, but the firing pin retaining pin in here, it will over time break, depending if some of them, the cheaper ones, they have a roll pin in there. This particular model has the solid one with the split end. I have had one break before, and I'm in Canada. You can't find these anywhere in Canada right now. I had to order one from eBay from a fellow in Poland. Very reputable. I did get it from him. So I always decock it by simply holding the hammer, squeezing the trigger, and slowly bringing the hammer back up. Okay, so that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are a little intimidated, like I say, with the hammer block, I hope this helps you out. It's a very easy way to do it, like I say, with the vice grips and the pin up. So that's my video. Enjoy, peace out, have fun, be safe, and if you have a chance, get out to the range.